Ballerina from the world of John Wick just hit theaters, and Ana De Armas proves that she can take on the reins, leading the John Wick franchise going forward in an incredible lead performance. This movie's a lot of fun. Let's break it down on this episode. What's up, movie friends? Welcome back to Raiders of the Lost Podcast, the ultimate film and TV podcast. And we had an absolute blast watching Ballerina. If you want your fix of crazy stunt work, amazing choreo, and excellent fight sequences, this movie had it all. It was really cool to see Ana De Armas in the lead role of this franchise. I think that she did a phenomenal job. It's big shoes to fill, but she is the star power. She's the acting abilities, and she really brought it with the stunt work and the fight sequences. If you're a fan of the franchise, I think you'll absolutely love this film. It is a fun time. I love the locations. It's a story that I was invested in, and overall, it was a surprisingly fun time. I think Ana De Armas in the action world has a huge future. It was one of my favorite watches of the year so far, and obviously you all know we had the great experience of going to the London premiere and meeting the cast and crew, but aside from that experience, I had a lot of fun with this film. I was very excited about it. I love the John Wick movies, and before we saw Ballerina, I re-caught up on all the John Wick movies, and they're just so fun, and this movie does a great job feeling like part of it. And just context, if you were curious where this movie takes place, you haven't maybe seen it yet in theaters, it takes place during the events of John Wick 3, Parabellum, which came out in 2019. And basically, it's sort of a prequel for some of the events of that film, in a way, featuring Eve Macaro, played by Ana De Armas, who plays, I guess you could argue she has sort of a cameo, that character has a cameo in John Wick 3 when John goes to Ruscaroma and there's a ballerina dancing on stage. You could argue that could be Eve, but then she gets her own movie with Ana De Armas in the role. But this takes place during that. And what was fun was they were able to kind of reshoot some sequences from John Wick 3 from the perspective of Eve being a student, a ballerina student, and a student of assassin, of killing, who's looking up to the boogeyman, who's looking up to the Baba Yaga to try to do what he does. And now we're seeing some of the same scenes from John Wick 3 from her perspective, listening through doors, watching John and the director going down the staircase, running the same dialogue from that film, and then just different perspectives of John Wick's arrival and visit to the facility and then leaving, which I thought was a lot of fun. Yeah, I agree with that. And obviously Keanu has a part to play in this film, as you've seen from the trailers, which we'll talk about a lot more in detail later on. But seeing him on the big screen as John Wick again since John Wick 4, the whole audience lit up, and he's just got that magnetism about him, the character he created with the filmmakers from the first film and what they've built over the past 5 films. He is one of the icons of action cinema, and seeing him again on the big screen, it was just so fun. And they did it. I think they did it right. When he's on screen, we'll talk about it more, but they nailed his scenes. I wasn't sure what it would be like, how big of a part he would play. It still is Eve's story. It still is Ana De Armas' film, and she brought it. And in terms of action, this does not pull any punches. It is extensive action sequences. There is a lot to have fun with here. The stunt teams did an amazing job. There's an unbelievable, just insane flamethrower battle near the end of this film that is just such an amazing climactic moment. I've never seen anything on that scale with fire, I think, in recent memory. It was just so jaw-dropping. I can't wait to break that sequence down. There's so many great aspects to the film. They did a good job really making it feel like it was still the same world, still the same characters, and the connective tissue was there, but it was still very much its own thing. And I just had a blast with the film. It's great globe-trotting. I love the locations. They mix things up, more world-building. It's great to see what this world of secret assassins and this underworld is like from the perspective of someone new. And speaking of the action, it's quite different in terms of the editing style. And Len Wiseman directs action in a different way than Chad Stahelski does. Chad relies on using extremely precise choreo and using a lot of long takes, and he doesn't cut that much, and he does a great job showcasing how incredible the actors and the stunt people are in those sequences with these very long, drawn out takes of these very complex choreography. And Len Wiseman is a completely different action director. He uses editing, and he does cut around. It's not super fast, but he does edit around the fights, and it's a different kind of portrayal of action. And for me, I thought it was actually quite refreshing. It made it a little more energetic, a little bit faster. I never felt confused about what was going on. I thought the action was laid out really well and then edited really well, where it had a lot of bite to it. So it was interesting to see the faster cut action in a John Wick movie.
Before we continue talking about Ballerina, check out this incredible John Wick 3 Parabellum poster over my right shoulder, provided by our great friends at movieposters.com, including that poster light box, both from the websites. Use our coupon code Raiders10 at checkout today to get 10% off your entire order. Yeah, I really thought the action was top-notch in this movie, and it was very visceral and effective, as well as not just the flamethrower sequence. I think there was probably 5 or 6 action sequences in this movie that I was so locked into, and it was so exciting. So the flamethrower sequence, I've never seen anything like that either. It's basically take the ending of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and extend that for 4 minutes with 2 people with flamethrowers and then a hose at the end. I thought it was so cool, so unique. Never seen anything like it before. I think my favorite fight sequence in the movie might have been the grenade fight. And this is where Eve is at the armory, the hunter's armory, and she's trying to load up. It's a classic John Wick scene. You know, that's what they did so well with this movie, is all the nostalgia cliches from the John Wick franchise. Eve's kind of doing it all for the first time, whereas when we see John doing it for the first time in the first film, he's done it hundreds of times. But we're seeing her stock up, get weapons to start going on her mission for revenge. And the armory sequence is with Eve is without a weapon for guns, but she finds basically a bunch of grenades and has to fight these men with rifles and guns with grenades. And it was so creative and fun. And I think that just mixed it up, because the thing with John Wick and so many action movies, yes, we love gunfights. Gunfights are a lot of fun. Gung Fu is fantastic. We love it. But also, I think it's fun to think outside the box. What kind of a situation can you put your main character in to fight back without a handgun, without a rifle, without a machine gun, with something else? And John Wick franchise has always done a great job, whether it's that great knife fight in John Wick 3 or 2 with the throwing the knives, which is a lot of fun, the occasional nunchucks, the occasional sword. But then in Ballerina, I think they just had so much fun coming up with unique ways for Eve to fight without guns oftentimes. And I think the grenade sequence was an absolute blast. It was so unique, so fun. The destruction and devastation with every possible grenade just raised the stakes for every second of that scene so much. And I got to say, that was one of my favorite moments in the movie.
I completely agree. The grenade sequence was so much fun, and it had a great comedic beat where she pushes a guy behind a steel door, throws a grenade back there, it blows up, and this is in the trailer, and then she pulls the door back, and now she has it blew a hole through the wall, so now she has an exit to escape the other guys coming to get her. So, and then there was also the moment where she pulled a guy underneath a table, flipped the table over so it shielded her, and then set off a grenade there. So then it exploded on the other side of the table, like on top of that guy, and just blood splattered everywhere.
Yeah, I've never really seen that.
It was great. You got to be inventive to keep things fresh and to get audiences excited. Also, you don't want Eve to be John Wick. You don't want Ana to just be exactly like Keanu. I think that the filmmakers understood that, Eve's not as strong as Keanu, as John Wick, and she's not the Baba Yaga. I think that if they made her another Baba Yaga, it would have been a problem. But it made it feel like, okay, the Baba Yaga is still like a god tier level killer, and then Eve is below him, but not much below him. But they did the right thing. And there's sequences with Keanu and her. Let's just talk about it right now. Why not?
So going into this movie, just to continue on that, I was worried in terms of how they were going to do. Obviously, we knew we were going to get an Eve versus John fight, and I think a lot of studios today, when they have a new young hot star that's going to kind of take over the franchise, they'll have that person replace the old version and defeat them or beat them or be better than them at everything. I think Top Gun Maverick's a great example of when that is the opposite, when it's done the right way, where they're still the hero and you're not taking away from them. But I was worried that Eve was gonna either kick John's ass or equal John, which should be impossible because John is the Baba Yaga. Like you said, he is a god tier, overpowered, unstoppable killer. He's the guy who you send to kill the fucking boogeyman. Whereas Eve is just starting out. She's highly skilled. She's the best in her class, but they handle it so well where when they finally fight, it goes as expected for what the audiences deserve and what makes sense for the story.
And in the scene we're talking about, now spoilers if you haven't seen the film, Eve and John go hand-to-hand combat with guns and with hand-to-hand. And they did it perfectly. And like you said, we're so used to the studios, like they take the characters that we love from the past and they destroy them. And they give some hot new young person who's never proven themselves for some reason is better than them at everything. But in this film, they did it the right way. They did the right thing. Eve cannot do anything to John. Everything she tries, she fails. He overpowers her in every capacity. He's better than her at everything. Everything that happens in this fight, he wins. He wins over and over and over again. His objective in this moment, he does not want to kill her right now. He's been sent there to kill her and to stop her. But he's given her till midnight. So in this fight scene, he's trying to talk her out of what the rest of her endeavor is in terms of killing the rest of the people in this village who are also assassins. So it's not like she's killing innocent people. And John's objective is to be like, just walk away, just go. And in the course of him trying to argue this, they're going through different fighting sequences, and he takes her on in every single instance and wins. And if they had done this like other studios would have done it, where Eve would have beaten John Wick and been like, "I'm the new one. I'm better than you. We've seen you're nothing, old man, you dumbass. I'm a genius and I'm so much better than you. You're nothing. Your time's over." If that happened, I would have been pissed. And audiences all over the world would have been pissed. But they did it the right way. They understood, Baba Yaga, unstoppable. He is the greatest killer, the greatest fighter there is. There's no way Eve should ever be able to overpower him. And it wouldn't make sense if she did. And they did it the right way. I was so happy with that scene. There's so many extravagant moments in this movie, but that sequence was one of my favorites because they nailed it and they did it the right way.
To touch on something you brought up while you're talking, one of the main themes of this movie, especially for Eve, obviously she's out on a quest for revenge about the death of her father, which we'll talk about the story in a bit. I think we're just cruising right now. We're in a roll. I like the theme of Eve having the ability to walk away. And this connects to John because she asks John, "How do I do what you do?" He's like, "It seems like you already are doing that," when they're at Roscaroma. But then he's also tells her, "You can leave." Like, she's like, "How do I get out of here? How do I get out of this life in a way?" He's like, "Just through the front door. It's not locked." And so it's very simple, but John's basically saying, you can leave this life. It's not too late for you. Once you start killing, then you're in. But you're still in training. You're still a student. And you have that choice. And choices and actions have consequences. And still here, during this big blowout at the end of the film, in this big sequence, he's still telling her, you can still walk away. Just go, disappear. You don't have to do this. But obviously he sees in her what he has inside of himself, which is why he's given her, I think, the chance to succeed and kill everyone in this village, because he has that same thing inside of him. And I think he sees himself inside of her and vice versa. And so I like the continuing motif of the story of Eve can walk away from this life, even though her father in the opening of the film is trying to save her from this life, trying to raise her away from this life and trying to get out of it. And she's thrust back into it when Winston brings her to Roscaroma to be adopted into the family business there, which is, he's looking out for her in a way, being a protector in sorts. She still can leave, and it's the choices that Eve make that I think make her a very strong character, because she, at the end of the day, wants vengeance, just like we love so many characters when they finally get it. It's just, I love a good revenge flick. I know killing's bad, but it's the John Wick world, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, and they're only killing other killers, so it's okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like Indiana Jones kills Nazis, so it's okay because it's like they're evil. It's totally fine. And speaking of Eve, the film has a pretty good backstory for her, and it's at first you're wondering what exactly is going on in this village in Hallstatt, where it's basically a group of this secret society of assassins. They live in this village, have been for hundreds of years, and it's basically like a haven for them. And I'm actually going to be visiting this location next week, so I'll tell you all how it is to see it on the big screen and then to go to it 2 weeks later. And Eve, we find out when she was a kid, her father took her away from this community to raise her away from this world. And that's what led to the opening scene in this film, which is a really solid action opening where she's a little kid and she's living with her father in this really beautiful mansion on the water, but then a bunch of assassins come looking for them and storm the house. And her dad has an excellent action sequence taking out a bunch of baddies, very reminiscent of the first John Wick film, The Home Battle. And it was a lot of fun. Really cool to see another figure that in this world who's highly trained and taking on bad guys. And then we get the main villain from Gabriel Byrne. He came there for Eve, but we don't really know why until the end of the film, because it was an interesting opening where it's like, why did they go through all this trouble for the girl? And then we learn halfway through the film, she's his granddaughter, and it's her birthright to be in Hallstatt, to live and to eventually lead this society of secret assassins in this small seaside village, lakeside village. I'm sorry, it's not by a sea, it's by a lake. So I like the setup of who she is, where she came from, and also expanding on the world of secret assassins where there's an entire community living together in a village was pretty interesting.
I think Gabriel Byrne was so fun to see in this role. I know that you had this theory that he was going to be Winston's brother going into the movie because they have a similar look. They're around the same age, so I think that could have made sense. And he's also, I believe Gabriel's Irish in real life, so he could have had an accent as well. And Gabriel's just a strong presence on screen. We all know him from The Usual Suspects, but also Miller's Crossing is a great lead role for him. He's an awesome actor. I like to see him as the main antagonist. He plays the Chancellor. And the rest of the cast, Angelica Houston comes back as the director of Reshoots. She has a lot of screen time in this movie. Lance Reddick is Chiron. This was the last time he filmed in the John Wick film. He passed away shortly after his filming. Unfortunately, it is his final on-screen appearance, released posthumously, and he always plays the concierge and good friend and confidant of Winston Scott at the Continental Hotel. Ian McShane comes back as Winston Scott, who obviously the leader of the Continental Hotel, but also sort of in a not really a kind of a Godfather-esque role for Eve in this role, because he saves her from being a child alone after she's on the run and brings her to Reshoots with the director, and then gives her her first gold coin. He's basically her initiation into this world and says, I'll do anything you ask. All you have to do is come visit me, and gives her her first gold coin, which I think is a powerful connection between the two of them, even though they don't see each other for whatever it is, 15 years. When she goes to seek help from him in information, he welcomes her with open doors and open arms. Keanu's back as John Wick. Norman Reedus is really great in this movie as Daniel Pine. He is basically a member of that cult who's on the run from the cult, because just like Eve's father, who wanted to raise her away from it, he's trying to raise his daughter away from it as well. And his wife was the daughter of Gabriel Byrne's character, the Chancellor. So lots of family drama in Ballerina here. And lots of great performances.
Who's Eve's sister?
Yeah. And then Sharon Duncan Brewster plays Nogi. She's a mentor and trainer for Eve in Reshoots.
I like the Reshoots training sequence. I actually wish we had more of it, because I thought it was such an intriguing world to grow up in, and it reminded me of like the Red Sparrow world, or where Black Widow trained. So I would have. My thing is, I would have liked to see actually quite a bit more of that, and we left that world pretty quickly. I get why they did, but I really found it so fascinating, and I wanted to keep seeing more of like the ballerinas who are also trained to be assassins. But there's some pretty good training montages. We get to see Eve setting herself apart, and again, this movie handles her being a woman the right way, where she's not stronger than men, which so many studios are doing. She has to find a different way to fight to take down a man, and that's realistic. That's authentic. If she's the guys in their jiu-jitsu training are overpowering her, she can't overpower them, but she can cheat. She can do things like kick him in the ball, scratch him in the face. I like how her trainer, her coach was like, fight like a woman. And I was like, that makes so much more sense than what we're seeing in Hollywood a lot nowadays. It's like, for her to just like, it wouldn't make sense for her to overpower a guy twice her size. We've been seeing that a lot lately. And she does come up with different ways to take down men, and we see that not just in her training, but throughout the course of a bunch of the action sequences. And they do a great job with showing how physically taxing fighting is. A lot of actors in Hollywood, you see them fighting, and they're barely even making noise. But like, she's screaming every time she throws a punch. She's like groaning every time she has to grab someone. Like, she's really physically exerting herself. And I felt like every fight she was in, I really felt how difficult it was for her. And Ana De Armas, I think, did a great job of portraying that while performing the action sequences in the fights.
It was clever. She has to outsmart her opponents and fight differently. And like you said earlier, they were glad they didn't make her John Wick and make her the Baba Yaga with the same exact style, because it wouldn't have worked very well. Whereas Eve, she has to focus on what her strengths are. Play to your strengths, outsmart your opponents, trick them, cheat, do whatever you have to do to win. Don't fight in their way. You're going to lose if you're just handcuffing yourself with your specific rules the way that they fight. And if you're only going to fight their style, then you're going to lose. So you have to fight your way. And Eve's fighting style is really fun to watch on camera. She uses her speed. She uses her out-of-the-box critical thinking with whatever she can use around her. She's very resourceful. But I also love the ferocity. Like, she gets in close. She has a knife. She's stabbing like 5 times in a second. She's getting in there. She's getting tight quarters. Eliminating like large amounts of distance between her and her opponent so she can get in quickly. And I think her speed and her precision are her greatest strengths, which is something that she probably gets from training as a ballet artist and a ballet dancer, as well as the precision, the speed, the flexibility, and the great strength and body control are her greatest assets as a fighter.
And in terms of weapons, I think they did an excellent job building up, because she starts out with a pistol with rubber bullets, and she basically uses that as a way to strike men. When she's on her first mission to save that young woman from some kind of gang and their leader, and she doesn't have real bullets, but she starts shooting them with the rubber bullets, and it's almost as if she's hitting them with some kind of weapon, as opposed to shooting them in the face. So I like the choreography. They got pretty creative with a lot of the weapons. There's also a great brutal moment with an ice skate. That's a great moment with the ice skates.
Oh, the ice skate fight. The ice skate fight's one of my favorite. But back to the rubber bullets. That's obviously, this is her first mission. She has to prove herself to risk Roma. All she wants to do is become an assassin. It's her. For her, it feels like a birthright in a lot of ways. And then obviously the plot shifts to getting vengeance once she discovers the man with the scar on his wrist with the X. But the rubber bullets are clearly what Roma do for your first mission to prove yourself. We can't just give you a loaded gun with real bullets to kill a bunch of people if you don't know what you're doing. So I thought that was really effective and a lot of fun. And that fight sequence was great because, again, she's fighting against someone who's bigger, stronger, and faster than her, so she has to change up her fighting method in order to defeat him, which is a great, obviously, little tease for pretty much every fight that she takes part in going on in the rest of the film.
Great stuff with the axe at the end too. That ice axe block thing.
Yeah, it was sick.
Fucking awesome.
I love that fight.
It was so sick.
The ice skating fight was one of my favorite fights in the whole movie as well too, and that comes later on in the town. And she's fighting these guys who are coming into this little warehouse kind of building, and they're fighting on ice, and there are ice skates around. And it was so unique, so clever. For some reason, it kept reminding me of Castaway because he uses an ice skate in that movie as a tool.
Yeah, I thought of it too.
But it was like ice skate nunchucks, and it was badass. It was brutal. It was bloody. It was so much fun. I loved it. It was one of my favorite fights.
I went ice skating for the first time the other day, so I appreciated it more after actually ice skating.
I saw that. I watched that video. How was it?
It was actually, I only fell twice, and it's so fucking weird at first. My first time, and I'm just like stepping out onto the ice, and it's so slippery, and I was like, how do you do this? And then by my third go around, I wasn't using the wall for support. I was going pretty slow, but within an hour, I was actually kind of moving, kind of cruising, going like 3 miles per hour. But it was fun. It was fun. But those skates, they're heavy. Those are absolutely weapons. I mean, I can't remember seeing that in a movie used like this. But after actually skating, I was like, yeah, I could believe that for sure.
I've never seen, I think, you be more focused in your life than trying not to fall while in your training ice skates.
So it was funny. I was like, when I first got on the ice, I was like, shit, this is going to be tough. How am I going to do this? But then I was like, what would Tom do? Tom would just be like, I literally was like, Tom Cruise would be like, I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to do it. So that's what I was just like, I'm just going to fucking do this. I'm going to figure out how to skate. I'm not going to be worried about falling. I'm just going to do it. And then I didn't need the wall for the rest of my entire time there.
Happy for you, man.
It was actually a lot of fun. It's a hell of a workout.
I still have never ice skated before, which is interesting because we're from Boston. We just never did ice skating or hockey growing up as kids with our family. But back to Ballerina. So this movie obviously takes place in the John Wick world, but this script originally was not a John Wick script. It was written originally by Shay Haddon, who's the main credited writer on the movie. And he wrote an original spec script in 2017. It was meant to be its own action film, not part of the John Wick franchise, but he was inspired when he saw the trailer for John Wick 2 to write this movie. This idea he came up with. I believe he was still in school, and he was 23 or something like that when he wrote this screenplay. We actually got to meet him and talk with him, which was a lot of fun. It was originally a very stylized action film with plenty of dark humor, almost a very self-aware tone, including an on-screen body count of the character who was originally called Rooney Brown. Eventually, Lionsgate...
Oh, cool. Like a ticking body count number?
Yeah. And so eventually, Lionsgate picked this movie up. It was on the blacklist for a few years, which is a list of unproduced scripts in Hollywood that anyone can really upload a script to. And Lionsgate optioned the script and got the rights to it. Eventually, they turned it with rewrites into a John Wick spin-off movie for Eve Macaro as Ballerina. And then after Shay Haddon did a couple rewrites with the script, he ended up doing a version with Len Wiseman, the director of the film, and more writers, including Michael Finch, came in, as well as Ana De Armas brought in some touches as well. And screenwriter and filmmaker Emerald Fennell came in for another rewrite on the movie, who just won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay for Promising Young Woman at the time. So she did a rewrite of the movie as well. So this movie ended up having 6 screenwriters who worked on it, including also Rebecca Angelo and Lawrence Schuker Blum. But Shay Haddon is the credited on the final version of the script, which I'm sure was part of the contract, and he did the majority of the writing. But I'm sure his original script was changed quite a bit in order to turn it into a Ballerina movie for the John Wick franchise and the John Wick world. But it's pretty interesting how, a script goes through that kind of process. Another very similar example of this is Simon Says, which was a script written in the 1990s, which got turned into Die Hard 3, Die Hard with a Vengeance, was originally called Simon Says, but that studio picked up the rights to that script and then turned it into a sequel for the Die Hard franchise. So it's not the first time that's ever happened, but the original script was very different for sure.
And it took so long for this film to actually get made and then come out that they hired him to write John Wick 3 and work on John Wick 4 as a writer as well. So I think they loved the script so much and probably enjoyed working with him that they were like, we'd love to have you help write the rest of these John Wick movies. And so those came out after they had already gotten this script from him. That's how long the process for making this movie was.
Yeah, and it also went through several delays. Len Wiseman got attached to direct the film in 2019. 2019, he got tapped to direct this movie. God. And it doesn't come out until 2025. They shot it in 2023. And then in
that was before the podcast.
Yeah, and then 2024, they did I've seen so many rumored reports. People are saying they did 3 months of reshoots on this movie, which I doubt is true. And I think that's just conjecture. it seems like from all the research I did, they just did extra shooting. For me, it felt like when I watched the movie that there were cut scenes, and there is a confirmed cut scene between Ian McShane and Ana De Armas where they supposedly had a fight scene together. When Eve goes to the Continental, apparently they fight, and in an interview with Collider, they were both up. They talked about how, well, Ian talked about how upset he was that they cut that from the movie. So Eve Macaro and Winston have a fight sequence in Ballerina that got cut, and it felt like me when I watched the movie that Len Wiseman's original version got chopped up by the studio quite a bit, probably, and then they shot extra scenes. I don't think they did reshoots, really. Maybe just first fine-tuning some action sequences. It seems like they added sequences, so I wouldn't call what they did probably as reshoots, just more additional photography, which a lot of movies do.
I have some more details from Chad Stahelski interview, but also 3 months of reshoots is fucking insane. Like, that's like 70 days of filming.
That's like making a new movie.
This movie probably didn't even film for that long. I mean, this was a moderately budgeted film at $65 million.
90 million.
I don't even think that 90 million. Okay,
that's not much.
I mean,
it's a high budget.
this film may be shot for 3 months. I mean, that's a lot of shooting. So I think people saying 3 months of reshoots, that's ridiculous. Chad Stahelski. Also, every movie with a large budget has time allotted in the schedule after shooting, after principal photography, for additional photography. Every major film does it. Chad Stahelski said that what they did were additional sequences that they didn't originally have. So what happened was, from what I could gather, they had the first cut of the film. They weren't totally satisfied with it because they were shooting pretty quickly and they had much less money than they usually have for John Wick movies. And so Chad Stahelski said Len Wiseman didn't really get to do as much as they were hoping because of how tight the schedule and how tight the money was. So they were like, okay, if we add a couple of things, we can really improve the film. So Chad Stahelski helped oversee additional filming, which added some more action sequences. That's what Chad Stahelski said.
Yeah, so I don't think they reshot scenes. I think they just added stuff. But I also think they did cut sequences as well, which I want to talk about in a minute, because there's a character that I felt like had a very strong presence in this movie, but they were kind of lacking in their screen time. But one quick thing before we head to our intermission, there's also a change in composers for this film. So the original composers of Ballerina, which were hired in 2003, were Marco Beltrami.
2003?
2023. Marco Beltrami and Anna Drubik. And they were hired as the composers, and they made an entire score. They worked with Len Wiseman on Underworld Evolution and Live Free or Die Hard. And by the time they did the additional photography in the movie, and it was 2024, they were replaced by the John Wick regular composers, Tyler Bates and Joe J. Richard. And so Tyler Bates and Richard, they redid the entire score for Ballerina because I guess the studio wasn't happy with the director's with Len Wiseman's cut with Marco Beltrami.
Wow.
So that's what I found online, was they replaced them and Tyler Bates and Joe Richard came in. This isn't the first time this kind of thing's happened. We all know Blade Runner 2049. Johan Johansson was the original composer on that film. And even it's rumored that one of his EPs on Spotify, which you can find, is his Blade Runner soundtrack, unreleased for Blade Runner, but released secretly, I guess, as a different album for him, because then Benjamin Wallfish and Hans Zimmer come in last minute to do the score for Blade Runner 2049 instead, and Johan's is scrapped. Not that Denis doesn't love and respect Johan because he worked with him several times, but from interviews I read, Denis said that the tone in basically the feel of the music that Johan created didn't completely match what they wanted for the movie.
That's interesting because Marco Beltrami is awesome. So, and yeah, I guess maybe they wanted it to feel, maybe it just didn't feel like the music from the other films, and maybe they were over worried about it. You know, we want this to have the same tone and vibe for audiences as the John Wick films, because it's a really good theme that Tyler Bates came up with, and they did an interesting thing in this film where you heard the theme, but they used different instruments to play the theme. It sounded like they used a xylophone or something to use to play the theme, like some kind of light percussion instrument to do that small John Wick theme. I would have liked for Eve to have her own theme, but I guess they wanted to keep like connective tissue to the John Wick film. Let's use that theme instead.
Yeah,
it is a really good theme.
I do remember liking the music a lot, and I do think that from my memory, again, we haven't seen this movie in like 10 days, so we're doing our best from memory. I would say I remember the music being really good, and I remember thinking that they did a good job connecting to the John Wick theme, and then eventually using it later in the film, if I remember correctly, but also Eve definitely having her own sounds and having her own music. But I remember they saved like the authentic John Wick theme for when he shows up later in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I think she had her own theme.
Yeah, she had her own stuff. Yeah, it's her movie, dude. Of course she had her own themes.
Yeah.
But real quick, before we continue, let's head to our intermission, have some fun, and then we'll come back and talk more about Ballerina from the world of John Wick. Now, before we continue, the best way to support Raiders of the Lost Podcast is to become a patron today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast, where you get access to the ad-free version of every single episode. You get access to weekly bonus episodes as well as our Discord. Patreon is the best way to support us financially. It is the reason we can do the show full-time and make all this content for you all every single week. It pays the bills, literally. So sign up today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Another great way to support the show, leave those 5-star ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple. These ratings help us get seen by new people, help us chart on podcast platforms, and I'll read a written review out in just a minute from Apple Podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube if you're watching. Leave comments, engage with our content on Instagram and TikTok. Those are the ways that are so helpful for us getting cool jobs, like getting invited to the premiere of John Wick and interviewing the cast. We could not get those kinds of jobs and gigs without people commenting, liking, and sharing our videos and our content on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. So thank you to everyone who interacts with us and engages with us on the social medias. And another great way to support the show is just share us. Word of mouth is the best way for a podcast to grow. So share our content, share our videos, share your favorite episodes of our show from Spotify or YouTube or Apple, wherever you listen and watch us, with your friends who also love movies.
This episode, of course, is sponsored by our friends at movieposters.com, the number one place to get your posters online today. Always use our promo code to get 10% off your orders, as well as the affiliate link in the link of the description, as well as our social media bio. That gives us a little cut of the action. Movieposters.com is the best place for all of your poster needs for film and TV. If you're a fan of John Wick, get your John Wick and Ballerina posters at movieposters.com. They got giant ones, small ones. You can get backlit frames like that beautiful backlit frame of John Wick 3 behind James. They have everything from your favorite Hollywood blockbuster to your favorite Hollywood classics, as well as international prints, really cool art prints made by amazing artists, and even for all the collectors out there, rare original prints of original movie posters, lobby cards, and movie stills from your favorite movies from back in the day. Collector's items, super rare, very high quality. All of your poster needs, you know where to go. Movieposters.com. Raiders10 is the coupon code for 10% off, and the affiliate link.
All right, let's get into our intermission, Anthony, and begin with the movie quote. You ready?
Ready.
Sorry, let me start over. I knew a sailor once got tangled in the rigging. We pulled him out, but it took him 5 minutes to cough. He said it was like going home.
That's the Prestige.
I knew a sailor once got tangled in the rigging. We pulled him out. It took him 5 minutes to cough.
Agony.
He said it was
I lied. It was agony. All right, here's my quote. I only gamble with my life, never my money.
Huh. It's a good quote. I don't know.
Hold on, I didn't write down what it's from. I can't remember.
He doesn't even know
the
movie to the quote he brings up.
Let me Google this real quick.
How's that happen?
It's from The Mummy. It's Rick. It's Rick from The Mummy.
That's great.
Well, I grabbed the quote and I just didn't write what it's from. I just wrote it down.
Okay, Anthony. Are
Rick
you ready?
O'Connell.
Guess this movie release year. Knock, knock.
2016.
2015.
Ah, gotcha.
First time Ana and
What-
Keanu worked together.
Amazing. What year did The One come out?
Nice pick. 2007?
2001.
It's that old? Oh my god.
Yeah, we were kids. We saw that when we were kids.
Fucking hell. Yeah, I guess Jet Li Prime was early 2000s, yeah.
Yeah, yep. In Hollywood, yeah.
He was still pretty young, yeah. Movie pop quiz time. Anthony, what was the first Disney princess movie to be given a live action adaptation?
Disney princess movie live action. Huh. That is a really good question. They've only gotten into live action addiction lately, so it can't have been that long ago. Cinderella?
Cinderella's correct. 2015.
Lily James.
Yep.
Then they were like, let's just keep doing it.
Then, yeah, Beauty and the Beast in 2017. Then they just haven't stopped since.
James, what movies have Keanu Reeves and Ana De Armas starred in together?
Knock Knock, Ballerina, and have they been in another? I think they have. They said it on stage, didn't they? I can't remember the third.
I don't know. You tell me. It's called Exposed.
Yes, Exposed. I looked that up last week. That's right.
I'd never heard of that movie until I
Yeah, the
I looked
poster
on IMDb.
the poster's not great, and the ratings are not great either.
Yeah, Keanu plays a detective who's investigating a case of like a missing girl, and then Ana de Armas plays this woman who knows something about her, something like that.
Yeah, I had no idea
Yeah,
they'd
I
been
never
in
heard of
3
that.
movies together.
Yeah.
Okay, Anthony. You got any unsubscribes for us?
Oh, we got some good ones. Oh, we got some good ones today. If you want to give us a little fact check or just bust our balls, please, guys, send us unsubscribes. They're so fun. All right, first up. Vivian McAvoy. Did you not see The Hard Way? Stephen Lang is a baddie in that one with James Woods and Michael J. Fox. How did you miss that? I'm going to need to unsubscribe. I'm going to add that to my list. All right, next up. Luke Boyd, underrated villains. This episode slaps, but y'all forgot about a very important villain. The Preacher from Night of the Hunter is extremely underrated.
Yeah.
And thus, I will have to unsubscribe. Didn't we talk about him in the intermission?
Not in that episode, no. I don't think so.
There's a different intermission.
The right
Active
hand,
mic.
the
Damn
right
it,
hand of hate, or left hand is hate, right hand of love.
Active Mike. Damn it. I was able to skip over most of the spoiler warnings, but James got me on Killers of the Flower Moon. Fire episode nonetheless, boys.
Sorry, pal. I mean, it's real life, so it's like that was. It's real, so I felt like that was an okay spoiler. But I'm sorry.
How dare you? How dare you?
That's like Abe Lincoln got shot. Like, sorry. Not that. It's not as famous, obviously. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, yeah. All right, next up, Sam Monsalvi. The guys are really starting to look like Clark Kent and Superman. If they turn out to be the same person, I will unsubscribe or just watch that one movie again. Just a chill guy. If you don't say hashtag Bob is the best, I will unsubscribe. I did it. I said it.
He said the thing.
Arabella Mason. Regarding the longest heck but completely valid young people's lingo debate, don't worry, guys. I'll stay subscribed when Gen Alpha renames you from the movie daddies to the movie grandpas.
This is 99% Anthony, by the way. Come on.
All right, next up, Jacob Brandt. No mention. Oh, man. I totally forgot to say this in the Mission Impossible episode. No mention of that sweet aspect ratio change in sync with Ethan turning the wheel inside the submarine. Looks like I'm going to unsubscribe. JK, another great episode, boys, from an awesome podcast. Keep it up.
Thank you. That was cool.
I totally forgot to mention it. John G. Not having Rattlesnake Jake from Rango on this list of underrated villains is criminal. Unsubscribed. Otherwise, great list. K. Prusco. I thought you guys were my muses until the Saving Private Ryan segment where you got the giant monster of a German who kills Melesh mixed up with Steamboat Willie. I thought the same thing on my first watch, but then I opened my eyes and they are not the same person. So I'm afraid I have to unsubscribe. I always thought it was the same guy.
Oh.
I always thought it was Steamboat Willie.
They're different. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, I
maybe
gotta Google this after.
maybe Spielberg purposely cast someone that looks a lot like him to show that it looks like the same guy to trick audiences, maybe.
Okay, maybe. I think he's the real. I don't know. I feel like it was the same guy. I feel like it's the same guy. I'm gonna have to Google this.
Yeah.
Jason William Parker. James, he didn't say plays himself. How dare you? Unsubscribe.
Just getting proven wrong in that one, man.
My guys came in in my defense. Thank you guys. That's it for unsubscribes. If you want to either defend me from James's outlandish claims or just fact check us or make fun of us, please leave us unsubscribes. They're great to read out on the show.
Apparently, Anthony's going to sue me for libel. Jeez.
I mean, I should.
We have a great 5-star written review from Nolan is Epic. 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Phenomenal!
Phenomenal!
If you love movies and don't know about this podcast, then you have to tune in immediately to the Deveney Brothers pod, a.k.a. the Movie Daddies. They always seem to make me smile, laugh, and be in a blissful mood from their silly banter, hilarious movie quips, factual arguments, mispronunciations, and skibbity toilet references. Sick reference, bro. Your references are out of control. Everybody knows it. I always love hearing what they have to say about certain pieces of media, learning about what is going on around the world of film, and hearing their recent watches. I have found many of my favorite flicks from their recommendations, and their insight is something that I always find interesting. I'm so proud of how far they have come as a podcast and as artists, and I'm so excited for what the future will hold for them. I hope that I will never have to unsubscribe. Wow.
Movie Daddies approve.
Thank you so much for that review. Nolan is epic. He is epic. Nolan, I don't know if that's your name. Maybe you're just talking about Chris Nolan, but what a great review. We really appreciate that. That's so sweet, so fun. So many inside jokes in there, and you clearly are an avid listener. Appreciate you to the moon and back. Thank you.
Thanks, Nolan. Movie Daddies are happy.
Hey, Anthony, what's your streaming recommendation?
Since Wes Anderson has a new film out, go check out Asteroid City on Netflix if it hasn't released yet, just to get in the mood.
My recommendation is Barbarian, which just dropped on Netflix.
Oh, cool.
I saw Phoenician Scheme last week.
How was it?
Phoenician Scheme was quite fun. It was very, very Wes Anderson-y, of course. I had a lot of fun. I wasn't in love with The French Dispatch, his last film, but this one for me, with a much more singular story, was a lot more digestible. I think Wes Anderson diehards and fans are going to love it. Other audiences, obviously, they have a tough time with Wes Anderson movies, but man, Benicio's fantastic. Michael Cera steals every scene he's in. Every time he speaks, the crowd was just so locked in and just waiting for his quirkiness, and he seems to be the perfect paintbrush that Wes Anderson finally found to just use as a sort of muse now, because it makes sense. He fits the world so well with the humor perfectly. It's so silly. It's so campy. The palette's wonderful, and I had a lot of fun with it. The characters are obviously fantastic, but Phoenician Scheme is a lot of fun.
I'm happy to hear it, although I do have to fact check you, James.
What?
Asteroid City was his previous film.
Oh, I'm sorry. Asteroid City was his last movie. You're right. I did like. Oh yeah, because French Dispatch was
French
like
Dispatch
2019,
came 2020.
Yeah, it was right before
We saw
COVID.
it. It was our first lockdown movie.
No, it wasn't. Green Knight was.
Oh, Green Knight. You're right.
Well, actually,
You're right,
technically, we went
You're
to go see Tenet in June in San Diego, but then after lockdowns lifted, we saw the Green Knight.
Yeah, Green Knight when theaters opened again. That's what it was. When like every theater opened again. Man, I've been riding the buses and trains a lot lately, and it's just like I was like, I'm so glad COVID's over.
Goodness. Okay, let's get back. Let's get back into Ballerina from the world of John Wick. And I was talking about how it felt like there were cutscenes for me, and I think obviously there's been facts and it's been proven that there are cutscenes from this movie, as quoted by Anna and Ian McShane. But there's a character in this movie played by Robert Masser, and his name is Dex. And Dex seems to be the main henchman of the Chancellor, played by Gabriel Byrne. And I felt like Dex was a really interesting character. When we were on the carpet, he was obviously getting billed as like a big star in the movie and was doing the interviews and everything. Seemed like a nice guy. And Dex has a scene around the first to second act where he helps take in Daniel Pine after he tries to attack Eve as well, but Eve escapes. But then we don't see Dex until we're in the village and really with the flamethrower fight. He has a scene with the Chancellor saying basically go get her. But then he has the flamethrower sequence with Eve, which is a show-stopping sequence. It felt like me, though, that this movie was missing Dex from the rest of it. And it felt like me, like maybe he had cut scenes because I think he had a great presence, and I was disappointed by the end of the movie that we didn't get more of him throughout the course of the film.
He's also in the background of the Gabriel Byrne scenes. So I think he must have had a lot of screen time that was just trimmed out because it's great to have.
He's got his own poster.
Yeah, his own poster, and he was doing interviews on the carpet, but I think he barely speaks in the movie. He says a few things, so he doesn't have a very significant role, ultimately. And it seemed like, because they were, sometimes great action movies, they have like when it's a one-person army, there is generally like one henchman who's like the baddest henchman, and he definitely seemed to have that archetype in his character, but we didn't really get to see him that much. So I totally agree. I think he must have had some more significant screen time that was taken out because it was like when he did show up with the flamethrower, I was like, oh, yeah, I remember that guy.
He's a badass. Cool. He's a badass. And Master's originally a stunt actor from Germany and then studied acting and now getting acting roles, which is really cool because obviously the John Wick franchise has always lifted up stunt performers so much and has done so much for the stunt community and recognition. But I was disappointed, but I wish we got more Dex. I think it would have made the movie stronger to have a lower antagonist to the Chancellor throughout the course of the film.
I do have a couple of criticisms for the film, though. You know, I think that ultimately the last hour of the film, it kind of lost its narrative drive in some instances. And it kind of, especially in the last 40 minutes, we had no breathing room as an audience at times where it was just kind of overwhelming action. And I know this is a big bombastic action movie, but for me, sometimes I felt like, okay, let's take a narrative beat or an emotional beat. But for me, sometimes the film, especially in the second half, it just seemed to be balls to the walls, kind of overwhelmingly nonstop action, and I didn't ultimately love the narrative arc or the villain. It was archetypical, and it was really nothing new. I did enjoy it, but I ultimately didn't fully love the story.
I'm the opposite because I loved the final hour. I thought the nonstop action was so much fun. I just can't get enough of it, honestly. And it fits the mold of a John Wick movie because the last hour of every John Wick movie generally is just nonstop action. So I enjoyed all the action sequences, especially when it was just consistent for about 40 minutes of the movie during the second to third act transitions. For me, where the story for me was a bit not convoluted, but lacking emotional depth, was or kind of context was Eve's motivations in terms of revenge, where obviously as a kid, her father gets killed, and then she's raised in Roma, becoming either a ballerina or assassin. Those are the two paths a female can take in Roma, and she becomes the top assassin in her class, basically. And then it's not until she sees the scar on the man's wrist on her first job that she decides that now I want revenge. Whereas I think it would have been stronger if she always wanted revenge, or even though it was in the back of her mind, like she has that line where I want to be ready, I want to be prepared. That's why she trains so hard. So the revenge plot, I think, could have been stronger if it was brought earlier on. And also, the thing with the first John Wick movie is we're with John for the first half hour of the movie, and there's no real action outside of the dog getting killed and him getting attacked and driving around. And we get but we get so much story with John. Obviously, it opens with him crashing his car in a nonlinear structure, but then we get so much story of what he's going through, his wife's passing, how hard it's been on his life. The mystery behind him is still strong. And then I think that's why people love John Wick so much, is we connect with him immensely in the first half hour of the first film. And it's carried over for 4 movies. Whereas with Ballerina, I think it was tougher to connect with Eve because she's a child in the opening sequence. And I think the opening sequence is maybe a little too long. And I think we should have got a little more of Eve. I think you brought this up earlier, more training of her in her youth, training to be an assassin and building more empathy with her at that age versus just aging her up right away to have that same empathy. So just as a character performance, I would have liked to get more Eve training young adult versus it felt like the opening was 20 minutes of her as a little kid. And the young actress was really great. She looks a lot like Ana, too, which was a great casting. She did a really great job, Victoria Comte. So I would say that I wanted a little more of that. But also, I think the cult was lacking depth and context and explanation, where they keep bringing this idea of the cult up, which I thought was really fascinating because the world of John Wick is full of these gangs all over the world, and the scope gets bigger and bigger with every movie, which I really enjoy. I would have liked to learn more about the cult and how they operate and what it's like and what it's like to live inside of that cult, because when she gets to Hallstatt and everyone that lives there is just starting to try to kill her, it felt a little abrupt, and I would have liked a little more. Like maybe the opening could have been her growing up in the community of the cult versus already having escaped the cult, so that we could understand what this cult is a little more, because I wanted more details and more background on the cult, why people live there, how it's so easy to accept that kind of life. And that, for me, for narrative, would have been a stronger connection for me throughout the rest of the film.
I totally agree, because the franchise of John Wick is so loved partly because of its world building of this new world that we had never seen before, and it was really exciting. And the world building in Hallstatt's village wasn't built at all. There was no world building, really. And so I was hoping to, and I was slightly confused when everyone started attacking her. I was like, aren't they worried about like police coming? And then I think we learned like 20 minutes later that like everybody who lives there is an assassin. And that I wasn't totally, maybe I missed a line of dialogue, but I didn't realize that everybody who lived in that town was a killer. And so
for me, I realized that when the chef started attacking her, then I'm like, oh, okay, this is what this is.
Yeah, the chef's a giveaway. But so I would have liked to understand like who these people are, because Gabriel Byrne's villain, the Chancellor, says we've lived here for 1,000 years, and so I was just very curious about like who are these people? What do they believe in? They kept saying they're a cult, but we didn't know exactly. Do they worship something? If they're a cult, what do they worship? This guy, the Chancellor, is their leader, but what exactly is their goal? What are their motivations? I feel like if every cult has an objective, and I didn't really understand what this cult, since it was kept being called a cult, like what made it a cult.
And also with the cult, you know, the Chancellor's willing to kill anybody, even his family, And how can a cult or a community survive for 1,000 years if modus operandi is just to kill anybody against you? I mean, it feels like then everyone would have died at some point before, because he's even willing to sacrifice his other daughter, Catalina. So his daughter, Lena, played by Catalina Sandina Moreno, who's really great in this movie as well. She has a couple great scenes with Ana. I think that the sisters' relationship was a bit forced and kind of abrupt. And also, like I said, if the chancellor, if the father's willing to kill, or the grandfather's willing to kill the kids like that, willing to kill anybody, how can all of these people have survived? And I wish we could have got more of, I guess, the brainwashing quality of the cult to really understand why everyone here will kill anyone and to protect the cult. Even kids, it seems like, are willing to fight.
Yeah, I think it could have been an interesting community for world building that I think maybe they didn't deem it very important to what they wanted to do with this film. But I was watching it and when it ended, I was like, I wish we got more of that. So for me, there's some really great action sequences and really propulsive dynamic filmmaking and awesome stunts. But narratively, story-wise, the second half of the film was lacking for me.
But the directing, I think, was so impressive from Len Wiseman, especially when we were talking with him, the Holstead sequence. He said they were there for 2 days. And this has to take up, obviously the interiors are on sound stages, I'm sure. Maybe a couple interiors are actually there. But so you're shooting mostly exteriors in Holstead. You're there for 2 days, and it felt like the movie time there, it's got to be like 35, 40 minutes, easy. And so it's so impressive what they were able to accomplish for such a huge, big blockbuster in a town for 2 days. And Len said that he basically treated it like independent filmmaking, guerrilla filmmaking, just running and gunning, setting up as many cameras as possible all over the place. And you have to work fast and be super efficient. And for a bulk of the movie to take place there, and I'm sure most of it is just exteriors that they're capturing, it's still so impressive because there are a lot of exterior sequences in the Hallstatt sequence day and night. So they probably didn't sleep for 3 days. Planned it, I'm sure, really well. Planned it very efficiently where all the stunts and everything's going to take place. But then for just having 2 days of filming in Hallstatt to do all of your sequences there, very impressive. I think that just shows how capable of a director Len is. And I think he was a good choice for this movie because it's not the first time he's come into an established franchise to make a movie. Live Free or Die Hard's a pretty fucking kick-ass movie.
I love that movie.
That movie's awesome, and I think he did a good job with that, coming into an established franchise and kind of being a Swiss Army man knife version of a director to adapt your style to the world that's already been created of this IP, but also make it your own in a lot of ways. So I think Len Wiseman did a really good job.
I'm worried. I'm kind of scared if when I go to Hallstatt, will everyone try to kill me? Pray for me. I'll be there in 5 days.
You should be all right since you're not Eve. You know, you're all right.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think obviously what really helped the second half was the John Wick appearance. And it was very exciting. When Angelica Houston makes a phone call, she's like, I have to call someone. They'll get it done. And you're like, okay, here he comes. And they did a great job of just stretching it out. The town's folks getting ready. Their chancellor's like, everybody stay inside. Let him do his work. And the train comes into the station, stops. And then we get the feet down the steps. Camera pans up, and it's John fucking Wick. And he's just walking through the village, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, it's Baba Yaga, it's the boogeyman." All the guys are afraid of him. And then, like we said, the really great sequence with Ana de Armas, her character Eve, and John Wick. Love the sequence. And then John Wick breaks his rule and decides to start helping her out. I think he's just like, "Fuck it, I see myself in her." So he starts acting as a sniper to give her a little assistance. Taking out some dudes, headshots here and there. And then he also has his own really great action sequence inside that interior of like a tower. He takes out about a dozen or so bad guys. inside that. It's got like some catwalks, some staircases, excellent choreography. Great to see Keanu doing his thing, and it was really fun. And there's a lot of great behind the scenes of the filming of this film in pre-production and getting ready. And there's some great footage of Ana De Armas and Keanu Reeves training to get together and really putting in the work. And Keanu, we all know, gives it his all. And I think Ana De Armas followed his lead, because it looks like she really did a lot of work here. She committed herself to the action sequences, to performing the stunts. I think she really put her neck on the line with some stuff, and I think she showed that she's willing to, get hurt, get her ass kicked to make sure the scenes look good.
Yeah, she did a lot of her own stunts, and the katana sequence was a lot of fun too when she gets the samurai sword in the fire in that cabin. That was one of my favorite shots as well in the movie. I think she was such a badass in this movie, and it seems like I think Anna's gonna be just a next great action star. This movie proved it for sure. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, No Time to Die, as Paloma. So many people's favorite sequence is that scene of her as Paloma with James fighting, and then she's training with Tom Cruise right now for the next Tom Cruise Macquarie movie, which is going to be the deep sea movie about the astronauts who find something in the abyss that is very dangerous. I can't remember exactly the synopsis, but she's training with Tom for that. And so I love Anna, how she's just, I want to be the next Tom Cruise, next Keanu Reeves, but also my own movie star, my own action star. So let me learn from the greats, build up my skills, train how they train, do the things they do in my own style, and then become the biggest action star in the world as well. And I definitely think she has that potential for sure.
Yeah, she's great. And I think everybody loves her. I think she's a fan favorite actress. It's kind of rare.
She really is. She's a phenomenal star. And I genuinely enjoyed Ballerina quite a lot. And I hope audiences enjoy it as well. This is a big movie for Lionsgate. They put $90 million into this. The Continental show did not seem to work out for the continuation of the IP of the franchise of John Wick in terms of quality and fan adoration. But I think Ballerina is going to get received very well. We're recording this on June 30th. The embargo is still up, so we haven't seen any reviews yet. There's really nothing. Yeah, so there's nothing out there. But by the time this airs, the embargo is lifted on June 4th. And so then we'll be able to see reviews and everything tomorrow, technically, from our point of view. So I'm very curious to see the reception here, and I hope people enjoy it. I think it's a really great franchise and a great IP, and Anna kicks ass, and Keanu's the best. And I loved seeing this movie. It was a lot of fun to participate in the premiere and go to London for it. So I had a blast. It's a good movie, lots of fun. It's exactly what you expect, and also I think it does some things better than the other John Wick movies in general too, and I think it pulls it off really well when it comes to the action editing. I think that's its greatest strength compared to the previous John Wick movies.
Yeah, I think that this movie was a lot better than I was expecting. I didn't expect this to be great, but it was actually a really good time. Great action. It wasn't perfect, but at the end of the day, I think they did a solid spin-off and has a lot of potential as a franchise.
All right, well, thanks everyone for tuning into this episode of Ballerina from the world of John Wick. Make sure to become a patron today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Use our code at movieposters.com as well as our affiliate link to get discounts today on movie posters. Subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, share our content, leave those 5-star ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple. You know all the things to do. Just do the things, and your film daddies, your movie daddies will just keep getting bigger and bigger and more opportunities to come. Thanks so much for tuning in.
See you next time.